Good afternoon. I am Elaine Hall-Corbin, your host, and welcome to Artists of Color, a community television show that talks about and interviews artists of color within the Roxbury, Dorchester, Boston area in those communities. Thank you for being with me this afternoon. And today, my guest is actually a very good friend and an amazing artist and photographer, Hakim Raquib. Hakim,
hello.
Thank you for being with me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I am very, very, very excited that you're here.
Thank you. So am I.
I'm glad.
All right.
You know, I've kind of like followed you around for many years, and we've talked about some of your works, but we've never actually sat down and had a conversation.
True.
So today we're going to sit down and have a conversation.
No.
And I want to begin with asking you, how did you become an artist?
It's a long story.
Well, let's talk about that long story a little bit.
I started my career, I was in my early 20s, about 23.
Okay.
I studied photography at the old famed Roxbury Photographers Training Program. And
Where was that located?
That was located at 25 Ruggles Street, where the old Bay State Banner used to have its offices.
Oh, okay.
It was right next
that
door
building.
downstairs. And the school was started by graduate students in the visual arts photography department from MIT. And this was around 1969. So it goes back that far. And that was my first beginning in actually formal training of photography. That's when I started actually taking it up as a art form. Prior to that, I had just been taking pictures, not really thinking about, what they meant. But the process of developing thought around taking images started then. But more importantly was the print, how to make a print that was expressive.
Okay.
So that's where the dark room, at that time it was all analog. I spent
Yes.
a lot of time in the dark room creating the print that spoke to me and hopefully to others. So it became an aesthetic adventure, journey in developing my work in that sense. I guess I started mainly photographing subjects in the street that were familiar to me around my neighborhood in Roxbury. I grew up here. So why not photograph the familiar, you know?
Exactly.
And that's how I started, and I never stopped. Of course, there have been moves to other places, to experience the journey otherwise, but Roxbury is pretty much my focus, and still is.
And still is.
In my work.
Even though Roxbury's been your focus, you've traveled.
Yes, I am.
And you've seen other places, and you've taken other photographs. How did you do that? In other words, how did you travel to those places, and what hit you? What made you say, this is what I want to photograph because this is what it's speaking to me, or this is the culture, or whatever's going on in that country is speaking to you? How did that come about?
Just my curiosity, interest in culture. But again, communities and the likeness of communities, I was always looking for how we shared certain values and ideas. Because the world is by communities, actually, and I just happened to fall into some great ones that were monumental, and I made statements about that, I think. I hope so. But my primary interest was to see what's underneath these communities and what it was that made them speak to me. For example, I traveled to Zambia and Zimbabwe when I was working with Oxfam America.
Oh, you worked with Oxfam?
Yes, I did some work with them. And part of the trip, I happened to fall on to the great Zimbabwe ruins of Masvingo. And these ruins were over a millennium. They were years. They were old, and they were brick laid without mortar, and they were still standing. And that amazed me. So communities all offer a uniqueness about the culture. That was more antiquity than anything else.
Yes.
For example, just for example.
All right. What other places have you been that you've had that feeling about?
Lately, Egypt.
Tell us about.
In Egypt, I spent, about a month in the desert photographing about 13 different tribes of Egypt that came together at this particular place called the Fustat El Gamal, which is the Valley of the Camels.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, this space is a reservation.
A reservation?
Yes, and what happened was they were trying to develop what you call eco-tourism there. So I was invited by the Bureau of Tourism, Ministry of Tourism, to come and give my perspective on this possibility. Because it's right there near the Red Sea. It was in Upper Egypt, which is near the Sudan. So it was all desert, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But it's not like the white deserts. It's a very rough desert and rocky and craggy.
Ooh.
But
is it red? Is it kind of?
Yeah,
to
sort of.
some
but
sort?
not, but not the desert that you imagine with the big, large dunes. There were dunes, but not the,
But
the
not the big,
spectacular zoom.
like they always
Nah.
portray. Okay.
Right.
Usually what's portrayed in movies is not what's real.
Well, no, they are real. There's a white desert. This was more on the eastern side.
Okay.
So what I experienced there was 13 approximately different tribes from all over Egypt, from the Sinai to, the Sudan, the people from Aswan, which was an amazing experience. But they all came together, and they do this, it's called Characters of Egypt. They come together on a yearly basis to talk about the preservation of one tree that sustains all life there in that desert. It's called the acacia tree.
The acacia tree?
Yeah, it's amazing. They got together how to prune this tree, and there was a big conversation, but all in all, this was the space that I spent a month in, and it was amazing. That's all I can say. I loved the desert. I mean, it was clean.
Oh, now
Very
I like
clean.
Okay, yes.
Once you leave the desert, you see how clean it was.
Yes, because
There's no pollutants.
There,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I want to, since we were talking about Egypt, this is one of your photographs. Can you tell us about this one? You and I were talking about it, but I want you to tell
It's an idea that came through because of my process. I was interested in Photoshop. And these images are all collections from different deities that were in Egypt.
Right.
And I call this the crossing. Basically, they're in a burial mode, sort of moving across waters. So I wanted to create something as a gift for my grandchildren. So I created this piece for that reason.
I think it's beautiful.
I loved it too because I learned a lot about not just how Photoshop as a not to sell it or anything.
No,
but just as a tool to manifest your ideas and create
I've tried
what you're
to
thinking.
use Photoshop, and it's not easy for me.
It's a little bit of a learning curve, but I think if you practice it, you arrive at some good conclusions because you only learn what you need at the time.
That's true. That's
to
true.
accomplish, and then you keep going
That
as
is
you
an
realize more
amazing-
ideas, what you want to do anyway.
Do with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay. Have you always been a photographer? have you done
basically,
other
I've been
forms of
in
art?
I've been in the industry. Since I was about 23, I guess. I started working as a photographic illustrator, developing samples for publishers in education, books around the city. So I was doing a lot of photographs that were used and published because this city, Massachusetts, had a lot of publishing companies back
Back
during
then,
the days.
yes.
And then I transitioned from that to advertising, commercial work, editorial photography. So I started working with newspapers, magazines, doing point of purchase for large corporations. And I did that for about 10 years in my career.
Really?
So,
Oh, my.
so it was a very commercial career that I was involved with at that time.
Okay.
You know, and I learned a lot during that process because you had to solve a lot of problems.
In order.
You know, I mean, it wasn't as if you could just go and take a photograph as it was moving in the street or something. You had to actually do a tabletop, set it up, lighting, etc., reflective surfaces, treating that with certain kind of techniques. It was a challenging experience, but I learned a lot that helped me to advance into my creative career. And I guess that was around 26 years ago when I started to move forward. I was offered residency at the famed African American Masters Artist Residence Program, AMARP for
Yes.
short.
AMARP for short.
I was an AMARPian all that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
See?
So that's where I really flourished, I think, creatively, because I was around such magnificent artists. And it started me to think about the image as more as a way of doing another, creating another narrative. Yeah. So today my work is photo-based, but I think it transcends and transforms into ideas that I'm thinking and working toward. You know, social issues in particular,
okay.
Mainly. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about this. I'm not even sure if we have any of those pieces here, but I noticed in reading your information that you did a transformative violence piece or set of pieces at one time. This, I think, was recent.
Sankofa?
Okay, maybe that's what it was. Sankofa.
That was a Violence Transform
yes.
exhibition.
Yes.
Yeah, I work with them. Yeah, in fact, I'm getting ready to curate a show with them.
Oh, when will that be?
March.
Okay. Will it be in Boston?
Actually, yeah, it'll be, yeah, I guess you'd call it Boston, Cambridge Community College.
Oh, okay.
That's where the exhibition will be held.
Going
yeah,
to be?
That's what it's scheduled, but we haven't had the call yet.
Okay.
We're still developing it.
Oh, all right.
But yes, I did work on a couple of occasions and exhibited with Violence Transform, which is how I really got involved with the organization.
Okay. Well, you know, we have a number of pieces of yours that I would like to have brought up, and we can have a little discussion about your works, because it's interesting. There was one that had to do with one that kind of fell with me was the piece on baptismal. I think that was the one, yes.
The Canvas Cathedral.
Oh, well, we've got some up here. You want to talk about this one?
This particular image is seminal for me. It is, it's called Bolero. I learned a lot from this piece in terms of early in my career, learning how to print. Remember I talked about the aesthetics of printing.
Yes.
And basically that's what it was for me at that time. And this print was a very difficult print to make because of the dark tones and trying to capture the magic and mystery of the image. I spent a lot of time, but it taught me a great deal about the direction I was going to go in.
Okay.
And so ever since then, the print has been the statement of my work. I mean, I tried to make the print as expressive as possible toward my feeling.
To me,
yeah,
it is expressive because I'm looking at the tones under the eyes.
Yeah, they're very dark tones. This is about circa 69, 70, somewhere at that point. And that was photographed here in Boston.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was at Carter's Playground.
Oh.
There was a drum and bugle competition there, and these kids were from, I think, Hartford. Yeah,
Okay.
and this young, actually young lady, I photographed. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now this,
Yeah,
I've seen a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Sort of like a signature piece.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a signature piece. I use it to sort of introduce myself. This was done during the Katrina
Oh.
incident that
Yes.
happened in NOLA. And it sort of represents the salvaging of NOLA, the horn going into the mist from the water. So it's symbolic in that sense
Yes,
for
it
me.
is.
So it's called, yeah, what is it called? It's Katrina.
Is it called Katrina?
So I think it's called Katrina. Yeah. An old man with a horn, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
Man
But
with a
that's what
horn
it
saving-
symbolizes. It's really about salvaging NOLA.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I came up with that idea. And that's a two-part image. Wow, these are pretty hard stuff. This is from Egypt. This was a young man, Bashari tribesman, that I photographed.
I like it.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's a photograph, it looks more like a painting.
Yeah, on this screen it does.
Yeah.
But it's a relatively large print, actually.
Okay.
But this is different. I hope it doesn't come off like that on TV. I'm kidding.
I know you are. Yeah, but I like the color.
Well, the wings of Isis
Isis,
and all this was a component that I worked with to give it some presence and space. He had just come out of the ocean, the Red Sea, actually, and that's when I photographed him.
Oh.
And then I created that. This is one of my earlier works. This is Photoshop, pre-digital.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
this is
Pre-digital.
yeah, pre-digital. This is called Dream King. I created this piece in honor of Dr. King's birthday becoming a national holiday.
Okay.
And this is a composite of 3 negatives that was shot in camera and then put into various 3 enlarges and then printed separately on stages, which has always been something I've been doing with my work earlier. So Photoshop was a natural for me to transition to because I love playing and transforming the work.
transformation.
Yes, putting things together.
But you know, as I look at it, it looks to me, and maybe this is how you meant for it to look, it looks like there are different, I don't know, kind of different images.
Yeah, yeah,
Looks
there
like
are.
different
well,
images.
the idea was for me then at that time was simply to the manifestation of the idea of peace. The bird on the right-hand side coming from his temple, and then the other birds zooming from his fingers, sending flight. Now, the third bird going out of the frame into the level is sort of like in a tailspin. It's sort of like a wound. The bird meant.
Okay.
But this is a trilogy concept that I had in mind when I created this piece. But it's called Dream King,
Dream King.
which sort of
It's beautiful.
speaks.
I like it, but
It's-
I'm noticing.
Yeah. I made this work several times, different. It's also in the photogravure. This work here is called It's No Dream, It's a Reality. This is one of my pieces from the Million Man March.
Okay.
This was a very important event in my life. It was an amazing experience.
I bet it
Amazing.
was.
But for me, these 3 men, they represent a spectrum of black men in this country, you know.
Yes.
And I love the sign as well. So it sort of
no
speaks
dream,
for
it's a real-
itself.
It does.
Yeah.
It
That
does.
was an exciting event. A very
there.
exciting event. I'll never forget.
Do you have
it.
more
Oh, I have a series
on just this?
on
On the
the Million Man March.
Yes.
Yeah, I spent the whole day there.
Oh, I know. Well, we have to do that again.
Yeah, that's an exhibit.
Now this,
Yeah.
I know it's Native
Yeah.
American.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. This is a play that I had started to experiment with, line drawings in Photoshop, I believe.
Oh.
And this was in question. We're talking about at that time. Well, the inspiration for this piece was an uprising Indian rock.
Oh yes.
That's not the name of it, but it was
No,
during
it's
that
not,
time.
but
it was during that time
yes.
that I got that inspiration to do this work. Yeah. So in other words, I do 1 or 2 or 3 pieces. This is also from Egypt, the youth doing a traditional dance.
Nice.
Yeah, they're a Bashari youth. This is their homeland that I was visiting. So they were greeting me and
nice.
photographed them doing this
They're-
dance. It's an amazing dance. They jump about 5 feet off the ground sometimes. It's
Really?
amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And I love this shot too.
And then a way of
This is at the nexus of Victoria Falls, and this is from Zambia, looking towards Zimbabwe.
okay.
There are a few, but I like the rush and the force of this image here, of the falls. This is without the rainbow.
Yes.
Yeah, you all see a rainbow at Victoria Falls. So,
Oh really?
yeah.
Okay. I love this. This I'm very.
The energy
And-
is
yeah,
there.
it's
The energy,
there.
The force is there.
You can see it.
And
I
it's
can feel
powerful.
it now.
Oh, this,
This speaks for itself.
well, I hope so. I mean, it's about homelessness
Homelessness, yes.
and what's taking place, you know, currently. And this was shot here in Boston.
Oh, it was.
Actually, in the community of Jamaica Plain, not too far from my studio. And I just wanted to do something. One man owned this, his possessions, his home. And it was very sad, so I left him out of the photograph, of course, but because I thought this was more important to show,
To show what.
as opposed to his condition.
What's happening.
This is what's happening.
Yeah,
And-
this is really what's
yeah,
happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is
Is this the?
Neponset.
Oh, that's Neponset.
This is part of the Neponset Greenway, and this was photographed in Dorchester, and it's a bike path. But I like what was happening here. He was just sort of looking at his phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually thought he stopped to read. But then
He's
you
reading his phone.
I figured
Yeah.
he was reading a book.
Yeah.
Interesting. What made you take this particular?
I think
Photograph.
primarily the form, the elements, and the design interest me, and the time of day.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just about seeing the moment, you know, and capturing what you're sensing. And then later you take it back and you start making an image. You create the image, what you sensed. This work is from vaudevillian actor Burt Williams,
Oh.
who was an African American. Actually, he was from Antigua, but he was well known during the 20s for his acting in blackface.
Face.
And I call this unmasking.
Okay.
Burt.
Unmasking.
Yeah. And this piece, you know,
Because he already is blackface.
yeah, well, you know, the technique was one that I wanted to, you know, do more in structure, more geometrics, to bring this about, his complication of his life and how he lived. And he died in poverty,
He
But
did.
yeah, he was celebrated in Europe a great deal, but this country never
Yeah,
respected
well,
his talent as an artist.
True.
But he was a Shakespearean actor, but he was forced to work in this manner.
See.
Yes, it's sad. So
It
this
is
is a tribute, homage to Burt Williams.
Okay.
I'm asking him.
Yes.
Yeah. This is some work that I did. So was it in I think it was the early '90s I did this. It was a series of a baptism that took place on the corner of Ruggles Street and Columbus.
Okay.
Columbus Avenue.
Columbus Ave?
Yeah, it was I think it was a Bethel Church,
I think, yeah.
and it was amazing because they had a pool and a tent, and consequently I call this a canvas cathedral. And there are about, out of the series, there are about 24 images. Fortunately, this one and a couple of others were picked up by the Museum of Fine Arts in their American print collection, which I'm very happy for. But it was one of my successful ventures. You know, it's 'cause that day I was on my way to the Cape.
Oh.
And I was just driving, and I happened to have all my equipment. I'm going to the Cape. I think I'm going to Martha's Vineyard to hang out and just have a good time. And I saw this gleaming white out of the corner of my eye.
And that's what got you.
And I said, oh my God. And so I investigated. Of course, it wasn't easy, but it took me about an hour to get permission to photograph the event. So fortunately, I knew someone who knew my father and said, oh, and that happened. And then suddenly I was in, and I was able to complete the task. But it was an amazing event, and it lasted all day. It lasted all day.
They do.
And so that's a very powerful series.
I remember the. Oh, I love this one.
Yeah. This is my hope for what the world needs to be about peace. And I call this Peace, Peace. This is also created in Photoshop, the bird in the hand, and the releasing of the dove, which is symbolic for peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good series you put up.
We worked at it. But I want to talk more about this one because I've noticed in some of your work that your photographs look like paintings. Is that because of how you create them or what you use in creating them?
I think it's a combination. It's a process-driven work for me. As I said, photography, I evolved, and photography is my base. It's my forte. But I like to transform the work into more the aesthetics of what I'm feeling to get to what is true for me.
Okay.
Because the truth is not always on the surface here. You have to kind of dig deep for it, explore it, and raise it up. And so this is what I'm in the process of doing. So not always, but I mean, this is something that I venture to do. Because that's the journey, is to find the truth. It's not always visible.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Do you, because we're going to take a break in a moment or so, do you find that you're still on that journey? Is that journey still moving forward?
Well, of course.
Has your artwork says, well, I've gotten this far, but I need to go further as far as what you do and how your work evolves?
Well, I practice. The technology, there's always a learning curve.
Okay.
So you're always wondering, and you're always curious, what will this do if I do this? So the tools are expansive now.
Yeah, they are.
But the process is still the same as it was from the very beginning. And my work is process-driven. I love to play with the tools that are available to me. That's how it is. So I think I will always be that way. I'm always just imagining
I don't think you'll
things.
change either.
Nah, I'm imagining things. I love the work.
I know you do.
You know,
Well, we're going to take a short
Okay,
break, and
good
we're going
enough.
to come back and we'll talk more.
All right.
It takes a village to help somebody get their diploma. Changes your whole life.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
Yeah, in a way it does, but not
Thank you,
exclusively.
Lee. Thank you. We were just having a conversation here, which was really good. And I am Elaine Hall-Corbin, your host. And thank you for coming back to Artists of Color this afternoon. And we're still with my guest, Hakim Raquib. And we've been having a great conversation because I wanted to say, you know, we were just saying, you know, you have a degree in sociology, and does the sociology play an important part in your photography and how you see your works, the photographs that you take?
Yeah, in a way, I guess. It's a mindset. I think it's my value system and how I think. And I'm not unaware. I think to be a photographer, you have to be very aware of what's going on around you, and, or at least take interest in what's taking place. I think it has affected me somewhat, you know. The values that I learned growing up, fundamentally, I try to maintain in my work. And I try to be honest as much as possible, you know, about what is true and what is right. The beauty of putting it out there is also part of the aesthetic dream that I have, so people can touch it and feel it as well.
Okay, okay. Are you, have you been, or do you work with youth as far as your photography is concerned?
Oh, sure.
And are you passing that feeling of knowing and understanding and transforming through photography to them?
Yes, yes, mostly during the summer.
Oh, okay.
And projects that I have. I usually have interns that I work with. And I do have some that I tutor privately, teaching, but...
Are they excited about your work as you are?
I think so, but I learn more about the work from them because they are fast learners. And
Yes.
millenniums have it, you know.
Almost down pat.
Yeah, they have it pretty much down. So I learn a lot of shortcuts on the keyboard.
Uh-oh. Yes, we do. Us older folk do that, don't we?
Yeah. But I'm excited to teach. I mean, it's always part of my life. Earlier in my career, I used to work as a consultant for Urban Arts, Inc., which had programs every summer in the neighborhoods in Mission Hill.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And we started a program called Technology Goes Home.
I remember that.
Yeah, good. And
I remember that.
it was a documentation to see their community and the transitions. So a lot of that work took place in the mid and late 80s.
Yes.
And I did most of my teaching during that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
but lately it's slowed down. So last summer, I did I teach last? Yeah, I did teach last summer.
Okay.
I had some mentoring going on during that time.
Do you still have, like, are you still mentoring those that are still going forward with their craft as far as photography is concerned?
Oh,
And do
sure.
they
I keep up with
Do
them.
they come to you and say, hey, Hakim, I want to do it this way. Can I do it this way? What do you think? Do you think I should move forward in this aspect? Should I do this series? I mean, that type of mentoring, do you find yourself doing a lot of that with the young people?
Well, I'm open-minded. I mean,
Oh, I know
and
you are.
So I share what I can, but I receive a great deal, as I was saying.
Yep.
It's amazing this back and forth because actually I learned digital art through one of my students who I taught analog, and now he's married. He's an engineer in computer science and security.
See.
But he taught me a lot
About digital?
about digital art. I mean, so
That's interesting.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know?
Yeah. So, but the relationship is still strong.
That's-
I mean,
that's
and a
good.
lot of my students have gone on to succeed in their lives. You know, I stay in touch with a great deal of them.
Oh, wonderful.
But the new ones, I mean, they come and go. You know.
I'm sure.
They
But
come
the
and go.
ones that you've had the longest,
Yeah.
you know, those that have started
But
back.
the photography is a matter of a stepping stone for some, you know,
Yes.
because it's a discipline as well.
Right.
And it teaches you focus in many
Yeah,
ways.
it does. It
Yeah,
does.
so that was part of the objective in some of the classes, to keep these young people off the streets and get them involved in looking and seeing
See.
other ways to develop themselves as citizens.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, but
You
I'm engaged in teaching always.
Oh.
It's a kind of unconscious event. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Subconscious, I should say.
Subconscious,
Yeah,
because I find with you, every time I see you, you are never without your camera.
Today I am.
That's because you had to. That's because you had to drag stuff with you.
right,
But
true.
9 times out of 10, I should say 10 times out of 10, I never see you without a camera.
Well, it's part of my life.
It's who you
know.
are.
It's part of my life.
Yeah, it is.
I think I feel naked without it. But sometimes I have to leave it alone to enjoy something
Something
else, you
else.
know, and just absorb what's in front of me without pointing the camera.
I understand. You know, we haven't really had a chance to talk about this piece, and I'd like for you to tell my audience about this piece.
Yeah. That is the Honorable Nelson Mandela. I coined this piece Madiba, which is his tribal name, and I call this Madiba's robe, actually, and I created this feeling of his greatness, of his tribal nature. This is an appropriate image, of course, and then I work the cloth throughout the image to give it a sense of flow, of traveling, of ascension.
Oh, yes.
So this was created after his death.
Oh,
Unfortunately, it was inspired to homage him
Jane,
after his
yeah.
death.
And now
Yeah.
that you mentioned that name, Madiba, I remember when they did the movie of his life, and that name was used.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it now because you gave it that name for this particular piece.
Yeah, it's become one of my favorite works.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Photography is not your only medium, is it?
Well, I mean,
You do others. It's your
video. I've worked in public art. I've worked on films. I've done a few things in my career, but my forte is photography.
It's photography.
Yeah, but of course, as anything visual, I guess I'm a visual artist, you could say.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, you are. Yes.
I still refuse to be called a digital artist, but
No.
you know, I work with that a great deal now more. You
Oh.
know, a lot of my work is done with third-party software. And
What is your, since you're talking about third-party software, what do you find the best third-party software that you like using most?
oh, there's so many, I can't really.
See, I
mean,
only
it's,
know about Photoshop.
Yeah,
I don't know about anything
well,
else. I
Photoshop
know
is an
Adobe
engine.
has one.
It's an engine, basically. It's a platform.
Okay.
But you can keep adding tools to that platform. A lot of people use Photoshop simply just to clean things up. When I first started, I used it that way, but then later I started to explore the tools and all the things I could possibly do with it and kind of push the envelope a little bit.
more.
And then that led me to getting other software that would expand the language and so forth. And that's what happens. You find out what you need, and then you add to it, and then you develop from there.
Yeah.
You know. But I guess the software, right now I'm involved with this thing called Deep Dream.
Oh, never heard of that
Well,
at all.
Deep Dream is an algorithm, artificial intelligence, and you can create imagery with it. Basically, it's filter-based, and it's a mathematical piece, and it works. Some of the things are unpredictable, but I don't have
I'm
any of
sure.
that work here.
Okay.
And I'll save that for later. But that's been one of the things I've been really concentrating on in the last year or so, and trying to learn that, basically.
Oh, okay, so you're in your...
But I do
learning
post some
new.
of that work on Facebook occasionally. Yeah. In fact, I did something on Jesse Norman not too long ago. Yeah.
Who is Jessie Norman?
She was one of the greatest sopranos and opera of our time. She passed
Norman.
away
Yes, she did. Okay.
a couple of weeks
Weeks
ago.
ago. Now,
yeah.
now that you're
Yeah,
reminding me, her
she-
passing, yes, it was all over
Yeah,
Facebook.
she was sort of in there.
Yes.
She was during my time. I mean, I really enjoyed her music.
Okay.
Yes, beautiful.
I think I heard her maybe.
Well, she's
couple of times.
She's unforgettable if you heard her.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So I did a homage. A lot of things I do like that. Pay homage to some of my heroes
And
or
who-
sheroes.
Sheroes and
So,
heroes.
Yeah.
Who have been your mentors? Or are there any?
Yeah. Well, there are many mentors. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I met and was inspired by one Gordon Parks.
Oh, okay. The great Gordon Parks.
Who said to me, if you've seen it, don't do it differently. Oh, okay.
All right.
Roy de Carava, I met on occasion. I love his work, which inspired my documentary work, his book, Sweet Flat Paper of Life. And then there was a commercial photographer that I loved a lot named Irving Penn, who technically just surprised me all the time. He was amazing. There are a lot of photographers that I loved, you know. But mentors are different,
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah, they are.
It's hard to say. I don't believe that I really had a mentor per se, except for one man that I recall when I was studying at RPTP, the Roxbury Photography Trainers Program, that I now recall Harry Emerson. And he used to work at Ferranti Dega in Cambridge, a processing photography store.
Okay.
And he was also one of the instructors at Roxbury Photography Training Program. And he taught me lighting.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He taught me lighting, portraiture lighting.
What do they call it?
Portrait lighting.
Portrait lighting.
Yeah. So I guess he was a mentor. Yeah. Mentor is a very expansive term.
Yes,
You
it
know,
is.
It's very expensive.
You know,
You know,
and
but this was all technical and
Yeah.
training. Well, not training, but in learning.
learning. Yes.
Learning the art form
Yes.
and the nuances of it. He was very good at that. And then, I suppose, yeah, it's hard. I guess he was
Yeah,
the one.
mentoring, I guess, can be
But
that
there,
kind of word.
There were a lot of people that were very suggestive to, oh, you should do this, you should do that. You know, but that's, you know, but there were a lot of people that inspire you.
Okay.
You know.
So who were your inspirations?
My mother one. My mother.
Okay. Hey.
She was very
She was the-
inspiring.
there you
And
go.
She said, go for it.
Hey, if you said go for it, you went for it.
Yeah, she was
That's
like
good.
my brother, my family mainly.
So
Yeah.
your family would, they
Yeah.
inspired you a lot.
Oh, sure.
And
They
that's a
believed
good
in
thing.
me
There you go.
and they understood
The belief.
what I was trying to do, you know, and they all were talented as well.
Good. I'm not sure if that's ready, but we should have a short video that we want to bring up so we can,
Video.
that little video.
Oh, the installation,
The
yeah.
installation, yes.
Adrift.
Yes,
Yeah,
Adrift,
that was done a few
I
years
thought
ago.
we might want to do that one and
Right.
talk about that.
Sure.
And have our audience see it, because I think it would be great. I only saw like a bit of it, but I want to. Going through so many things.
Yeah,
and I
you
said,
are.
Yeah, well, I was. I do that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I do that a lot. But do you see yourself?
For Cyber Arts, Inc.,
Okay.
which is a digital platform in the city of Boston for art. And it has a marquee that it shows the work every Sunday in front of the convention center in the Seaport District.
Oh,
it's
in
a
the
huge, it's
Seaport
about 80
District.
feet high. It's an amazing piece. So a lot of digital artists come together and they create these 30-second pieces.
Okay.
So this is a collaboration with another artist named
Artist.
Davis Miller, who is at Northeastern University Music Department.
Oh,
So we
okay.
collaborated on this work. But the imagery was taken primarily from my trip to Egypt.
Oh.
And so I used this to talk about the situation of refugees in flight and the life of hardship of the desert
Right.
and people of the dunes, I say. And that's pretty much
People of the
the
dunes.
sense. And so it got more involved, but this simplified. It's hard to do something in 30 seconds, but it's like a commercial, you know. But
It's interesting.
it points to a thought about
There you
know, a people, and especially if it's downtown Boston, they certainly have to look at it
Yes, they do.
because most of the other work is abstract, and this is pretty much documented work.
Mark, okay.
Yeah.
Where do you see your photography going? In other words, as far as moving new consciousness, what's coming? What are your thoughts on that? Where do you want to go with your photography? Are there things that you haven't seen yet that you want to see?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I want to continue doing it, basically healthy, and do some more traveling.
Okay. Do you have plans to where you want to go next?
Not yet.
You just think
Just, I'm percolating it.
You're
It's
just
percolating.
laying low for the moment?
Well,
Not
I
really
work.
laying low,
I work
but-
every day.
I know you do.
Elaine. I create a piece every day. The idea is that I just want to be able to keep doing it. And wherever that takes me, fine. Right now, I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Okay.
I think,
All right.
as I mentioned earlier, this new area of deep dream might open up some new avenues for creativity.
Okay.
And looking at that as a possibility down the line to expand that vocabulary,
Oh, all right.
visual vocabulary at least, yeah.
Now, I know we talked about this, and you did mention, I've kind of like lost my sense of deep dream. You want to give us a little bit more?
Well, it's the algorithm and artificial intelligence is based on, math,
Oh, so
essentially.
it's based on math.
Yeah, it's more about simply, there are filters, basically, that one can create, and these filters can simulate a form.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And in other words, I don't have any examples of that
Okay.
work. It would be easier to explain it
If
to
we-
see it.
Okay.
But it simply is a filter that you overlay
Okay.
on the work, and it just magnifies the image and form.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting about that is that it's unpredictable in many ways. You really don't know exactly
What's
the
going to come
positioning
from-
of where these shapes and textures will happen.
Oh,
However, the idea is to go back into it as a painter would go back into its work
okay.
and then make your adjustments. So trying to set that up mathematically is another thing.
Wow.
But the point
Okay.
is, I don't know that much about the ins and outs, to be honest with you, but I'm certainly going to learn, and I think that might be the adventure that I'm having right now.
Right now?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I started
Okay.
doing it about a year ago. I don't do it a lot, but it does break monotony in my life. It makes it a lot easier to
I'm gonna have
play.
to come over to your studio and see how you do
Yeah, you
that.
better hurry up and see it.
I need
yeah,
to come over.
But that's what's taking over right now in the field of photography. Is
Photography?
in the technology, even in the cameras,
Oh,
there just so much new work. I mean, as you know, that everyone with an iPhone is a photographer.
yeah, I know.
So, how do you make the separation? I mean,
Yes.
can I get in here?
Can I get in this within
but
there?
but
I
in
mean,
reality, there is this idea that you can transform your work. Some people say manipulate. I like to say transform the work, and that's my interest essentially. But there is the idea of application and what makes sense, and aesthetically. And since I love the print, it's about making that image.
Okay.
It's about the end product is making the image.
Wow. Hakim, thanks for coming on, being
That's
with
it?
us this afternoon. Yeah, because we're going to have you back. But
Oh.
yes, I do want to have you back.
Thanks,
Because I want
Elaine.
to talk about the algorithms
I'll know more about that.
and all of that. Thank you for being
Yeah.
on.
Thank you.